Let's paint a picture. You wake up at dawn, not in a warm bed, but on a pile of straw that smells like mildew and piss. Your clothes? Ragged. Your hands? Covered in old scars and fresh bites. Because you're not a knight, you're not a merchant, you're not a monk or a noble, you're a rat catcher. And in medieval Europe, that means your life sucked. You weren't respected, you weren't rich, you didn't wear armor or wield a sword, but you were absolutely essential. Because rats were everywhere. And where there were rats, there was disease. In the medieval world, cities were disgusting. There were no proper sewers, no garbage trucks, and definitely no pest control companies. People threw waste, human and animal, into the streets. Food was stored in wooden bins and cellars with no protection. The roads were clogged with manure, rotten meat, and dead animals. Rats thrived in it all like kings. And that's where you came in. You were the unlucky soul whose job was to hunt and kill these rats before they spread filth and plague. It was dirty, dangerous, and absolutely horrifying. Your tools? Simple and savage. You probably carried a wooden club, a sack, and maybe a few cages. Some rat catchers used dogs or ferrets trained to hunt rats through tunnels and basements. Others relied on raw instinct, lunging into holes with bare hands. Yes, bare hands. You'd crawl through dark, cramped spaces, attics, basements, barns, food storage, taverns, and even graves, searching for the scurrying, squealing little monsters. And when you found them, it was war. You swung your club, stomped with your boots, smashed cages shut, and sometimes just grabbed them with your fingers. And the rats fought back. They bit, they clawed, they screamed, they swarmed. A cornered rat didn't just run. It leapt at your face. And remember, there were no gloves, no vaccines, no antibiotics. One deep bite could mean infection, fever, and death. And if the bite didn't get you, the flea bites might. Because by far, the worst part of your job was the thing you couldn't even see. Fleas. Carrying the bubonic plague. You see, rats were the vehicles, but the fleas were the real killers. When you dragged sacks full of squirming, half-dead rats through the city, your body became a magnet for fleas. Every time a flea jumped off a dying rat and onto your ankle, it could mean a black, agonizing death a few days later. And you'd never know until it was too late. Boils the size of eggs would form under your armpits and groin. Your skin would turn black. You'd vomit, scream, collapse, and die, like so many others. Rat catchers, despite their critical role, were often the first victims of plagues, because they lived in constant contact with the source, and nobody cared. If you dropped dead in a gutter, they'd just find someone else desperate enough to take the job. There were always poor folks willing to risk death for a few coins. And speaking of coins, you didn't earn much. Being a rat catcher wasn't a path to wealth. At best, you earned a handful of copper per catch. If there was an outbreak or infestation, maybe you could haggle for more. But in general, you were scraping by, living in the slums alongside beggars, criminals, and lepers. Some rat catchers tried to get creative, offering bounties per tail or charging for monthly protection. A few even dabbled in shady tactics, releasing captured rats back into a home just to get hired again. Others claimed to be rat whisperers or used superstition to boost their brand, wearing charms, chanting prayers, or claiming they could smell rats through walls. But no matter what you did, people still looked down on you. You were considered dirty, weird, and cursed. Parents warned their kids not to talk to you. Priests preached that your job was lowly, unholy, and possibly demonic. Even taverns hesitated to serve you, because no one wanted to drink next to the guy who just hauled in a blood-soaked sack of dead vermin. Yet, when the plague hit, when people started dropping like flies, suddenly everyone needed you. They begged for your help, offering coin, bread, whatever they had, just to make the rats go away. But it was always too late. You'd do what you could, but you knew the truth. You couldn't stop the Black Death with a club and a cage. You were a band-aid on a gaping wound. And even then, when the panic subsided, they tossed you aside again. Back to the shadows, back to the filth. Your home wasn't much better. You likely lived in a one-room hovel shared with the other outcasts. Executioners, tanners, maybe even gravediggers. No windows, no clean water, just a straw mat and a bucket. You went to sleep every night with the same smell in your nose. Blood, mold, and rot. And rats didn't care that you were the rat catcher. They infested your own home, too. You might kill 50 a week and still wake up to squeaks under your bed. You might crush nests and still find new ones in the rafters. You were never done, never safe. You were trapped in a job that followed you home like a curse. Some rat catchers turned to drinking. Others turned to prayer. A few lost their minds completely, muttering about rats inside the walls, even when none were there, because being a rat catcher didn't just ruin your body, it broke your mind. The constant paranoia, the solitude, the knowledge that people only tolerated you because they feared what followed you, it wore you down. And here's the kicker, the rats always came back. No matter how many you caught, no matter how good you were, the filth, the poverty, the chaos, it kept breeding them. You weren't solving the problem. You were just delaying the inevitable. So why do it? For some, it was the only job available. For others, it was tradition, passed down from fathers who'd done it too. And for a few strange souls, it was a calling. A grim pride in standing between the people and the plague. A kind of martyrdom, maybe. But for most, it was survival. Nothing more. Being a medieval rat catcher meant crawling in filth, fighting disease, being bitten, scratched, burned, shunned, and forgotten. You were poor, hated, and likely to die young. You had no armor, no glory, and no legacy. And yet, without you, cities would have fallen faster. Plagues would have spread further, and more people would have died. But they never built statues for rat catchers. They didn't write songs or poems. You just disappeared, like the rats you hunted. Gone. That's why your life as a medieval rat catcher absolutely sucked.